Welcome to Next on the Tee with Chris Mascaro, the show where you get the inside access to the best minds in the game. Each week, Chris has the privilege of chatting with top instructors, legendary players, course architects, and industry insiders. If you're looking to improve your game, gain a new perspective, or just hear some incredible golf stories, you are indeed in the right place.
You see, Chris, let me tell you something, I haven't spoken to a press man in my life that is knowledgeable, seriously, as you are. Never.
You do such a great job. It kind of makes me feel good all of a sudden.
You do so much for the game. You're so kind to all of us that are out there in the game. You know, we need more people like you in the game of golf.
Thank you for pressing play. Now, grab your clubs, step up to the tee, and let's get started. This is Next on the Tee.
Hi, folks. Happy Masters Week to you, and welcome into this edition of Next on the Tee, where golf legends live and your game gets better. I'm your host, Chris Mascaro, and as always, thank you so much for pressing play and making us a part of your weekly golf content. Whether you're on your way to the golf course, heading into the office, or kicking back in thinking about your next round, you are absolutely in the right place, because today I've got two unbelievably great guests in store for you from two very different sides of our great game, both with great golf stories, great insights, unbelievable perspectives that I promise you're absolutely going to love. First up is a global icon, a true ambassador of our game, one of the greatest champions our sport has ever known, and a guy who means so incredibly much to me, has since the very first episode of this show, and that is Mr. Gary Player. As you know, Mr. Player and another all-time legend in our game, Billy Casper, were the very first guests on this show back in 2013. And ever since, Mr. Player has been a part of this show around Masters Week. I've had the privilege of spending time with him for the last 13 years around Masters Week, and it has been an absolute joy and something I anticipate every single year. When you think about Gary Player, you're not just talking about a guy who won 9 majors on the regular tour. He also won 9 more on the Champions Tour, 18 major championships over the course of his wonderful career. He's one of only 2 players to win the career Grand Slam on both tours, Mr. Nicklaus being the other one. You're also talking about a man of excellence, discipline, fitness, and a passion for growing the game around the world. In our conversation this year, Mr. Player shares his thoughts on what it takes to build a championship mindset. We dive deeply into his 3 Masters victories, how fitness and preparation have shaped his longevity, and the lessons he's learned from competing on the biggest stages in the game. He shares his insights into the modern game, right? What's going on around the PGA Tour today, what today's players can learn from the legends, and the importance of giving back, growing the game, and leaving it better than you found it. As you would expect, when Gary Player speaks, what do? You lean in, because every word comes from experience, wisdom, and an absolute love for the game that is second to none. Following that conversation, I'm joined by one of the most creative minds in golf course design today, Agustin Piza. Augie is known for thinking about things differently, thinking way outside the box from the cookie-cutter golf courses that we see so much of. He blends strategy, artistry, and playability into courses that challenge great players while still being fun for players like you and me. And in our conversation, we go inside the ropes of what it's like to design a golf course. You're going to get the feeling for what separates a good course from the truly memorable one, how architecture can influence the way we think and play each and every shot, and how modern design is evolving to meet the needs of today's players. Augie also shares stories from his work around the world through his time working for the Nicklaus Construction Company, Tom Fazio, and Mr. Player, oh, by the way. We also learn about the holes that he has designed for TGL. So some of those courses that you're watching those guys play, some of those holes, Augie designed them. Plus, we get into his collaboration with his clients and what he believes is the future of golf course design. He is absolutely a joy. You're going to love Augie when you meet him as part of segment number 2. So you know what? Do as always, sit back, relax, and get ready for a fantastic episode, because when you combine the perspective of a legend like Gary Player with the creativity and vision of Agustin Piza, you're going to get a conversation that's not only fascinating, but one that just might change the way you look at the game. If I could ask one favor of you before we get started, and that is wherever you're listening to this show, if you would take just a moment and subscribe to it. You guys know algorithms are everything out there on every podcast site. If you would subscribe, it would do a world of good for this show by getting it in front of more golf fans, more golf enthusiasts just like you. I would really, really appreciate it. Okay, you know I like to get things started shouting out the wonderful people that help to sponsor this show, starting with my great friends over at the Trib. TribLive.com is the leading news website in Western Pennsylvania, with news around the clock, Pittsburgh pro sports coverage, a high school sports network, and a podcast network, which is where you can find Next on the Tee. Bookmark TribLive.com or download the Trib Live app for free and stay up to date with the latest news from Western Pennsylvania and beyond. I also want to talk about our friends over at the Pittsburgh Brewing Company and Iron City Beer, a brand that I have loved my whole life and started drinking when I was 21 years old, of course. Whether you're a hacker or a scratcher, the secret to a successful day on the links is knowing when it's time to grab an iron, even if that means keeping it in the bag till the 19th hole. If it's been a while since you've reached for Pittsburgh staple beer, it's time to revisit Iron City. Thanks to their incredible new facility in Creighton, the best-tasting Iron City beer ever made is now available at a course near you. Iron City pairs well with any lie and sky and serves as a friendly reminder that there's always next round. And because it's never too early for chocolate, their double chocolate Bock is back for the season, and it's the perfect companion for a cozy winter evening. Check out all of their wonderful beers and their gift shop by going online to pittsburghbrewing.com. In golf, fast isn't a nice-to-have, fast is a necessity, and speed off the tee is where it all starts. That was precisely the thinking behind the all-new QI4D family of drivers from TaylorMade, our fastest, most fittable drivers. Built to meet the demands of the world's best players like Scottie Scheffler, Rory McIlroy, Nelly Korda, and the rest of Team TaylorMade. The QI4D lineup was engineered to unlock the 4 dimensions of speed, starting with a multi-material driver head with enhanced aerodynamic shaping, combined with a faster face and our revolutionary React shaft system. The TaylorMade QI4D drivers are ready to extract every bit of speed from every golfer's unique swing profile. Our industry-leading adjustability and fitting unlocks it all. Watch the full story of QI4D, our quest to build the fastest, most fittable drivers, and unlock your newfound speed at TaylorMadeGolf.com/findingfast. Okay, folks, like I mentioned in the intro, coming up here in the first segment of the show, I had the privilege of spending some more time with the absolute legend in our game, a guy who has meant the world to me over the years, like I said, since episode number 1, Mr. Gary Player. He and Billy Casper were the very first guests on this show and really got us off and running and, again, put us on the map, as I say, when you look back at the podcast world in 2013 and a show that nobody ever heard of with a guy that nobody ever heard of, getting an opportunity right out of the chute to spend time with Gary Player and Billy Casper was an unbelievable blessing. And he has been a blessing to me every year since then. This time around, Mr. Player and I get an opportunity again to reflect on his Masters victory starting in 1961. We've got the 65th anniversary of that wonderful victory here coming up in a few days. But coming up in this conversation, you're going to hear legendary stories. We're going to talk about mental toughness and how it benefited him and at times hurt some other people. They let themselves kind of break their concentration, get out of their game, and then the next thing you know, bad things ended up happening. So we'll talk about how his mental toughness separated him from others. We'll talk about how longevity in his career separated him from others. Again, a man who won major tournaments across 20 years. So that, to me, and we talk about it with him, is one of the things we need to talk about when we're putting together, right, the list of the greatest players of all time. Got to have longevity. So you'll hear about that as well. But Mr. Player is a treat. At 90 years of age, still incredibly sharp. He talks about that, how he exercises his mind as well as his body. That's allowed him to be this sharp at 90 years of age. He is just an unbelievable human being, and I can't thank him enough. So sit back, enjoy this conversation that I got to have here this Masters Week with the great Gary Player. Mr. Player, I want to kick off our annual Masters Week conversation by going back and looking at your very first Masters victory in 1961. We are coming up on the 65th anniversary of that wonderful victory. You were 25 years of age at the time. It was a huge battle that year in the last round between you and Mr. Palmer. You and I have talked over the years about the power of the mind. And Mr. Palmer allowed himself to lose focus on the fairway of the 72nd hole after accepting congratulations for something he hadn't yet achieved. And that's obviously a big no-no in the game of golf. Can't lose focus. Did you ever talk with him about what happened there?
We did actually discuss it, and then we sort of, we realized the realization and the difficulty of golf and what actually happens in your life. And then we said the following year, I had him by 2 shots with 3 holes to go, and I had an opportunity to be the first man to win the tournament twice in a row at that stage. And he missed the green to the right at 16. Nobody's ever got it down in 2 from there. And I hit it 12 foot from the hole, and I got him by 2 shots. And my caddy says to me, we've won. And I shook his hand. Worst thing you could ever do. And Palmer chipped it. It went round the side, was gathering speed, going off the green, hit the flag and went in the hole. The next hole he hit Eisenhower tree. I drove it 50 yards by it. He hit a low 5-iron, a punch one onto the front edge and hold that. And then we tied and we went in an 18-hole playoff. And I was out in 33. He was 36. The 10th hole, I hit it about 20 foot from the hole. He was about 40 foot and he held it. And I said, God's an American. And so we said, well, okay, we're even.
We all love to watch what happens around Amen Corner every year. Like everyone, you've had ups and downs at that stretch of holes. Talk about what Alister MacKenzie does to you from a strategic and mindset perspective as you try to navigate those 3 holes.
He must have been a genius. And second, the great Bobby Jones, as I understand it, assisting him, and Clifford Roberts. And but those not an appropriate name to call it Amen Corner. I mean, look what happened to Rory McIlroy. He had he was leading the tournament and made the biggest mess you ever saw. He holds particularly at 10, and then he comes back and he wins the tournament later. There's so many stories. Amen. My goodness me, that's so true. I mean, there's 3 such great holes. It's straight. You now got a long shot into the green. If you draw it, you got a shortish or average shot. So cleverly designed. And then you go to 11 and the water on the left. And then 12, which is really, they asked me today at a dinner last night, in fact, which is the hole, my favorite hole at Augusta. I said 12. It's only an 8, 9, a 7 or an 8 or a 9. And look what it's done to people. It ruined Jordan Spieth's career. It killed J.C. Snead. Arnold Palmer had his problems there. And the miracle of all miracles is Fred Couples, when he hit the ball and the ball stuck up in the bank. There's no way it could do that. No way. And yet it did. So it's just full of stories, of fascinating stories, and things that have happened to people on those 3 holes.
So I want to take your comments about 12 a step further because, and I've talked to a lot of players. On Sunday, they've got that pin placement on the right-hand side, and everybody knows the play is straight over the bunker. And I've talked to so many players that have talked about how they know that that's the play. They line up and they have it in their mind that that's the play. But somewhere between the backswing and the downswing, they just can't help themselves by aiming it over towards the flag. I mean, we saw 4 of the best players in the world back in 2019 put it in that water that allowed Tiger to charge through and win. What is it about that tee shot on 12?
The thing that's about the tee shot that nobody talks about it's the lowest point of the golf course. And that's where the wind, if you tell people this, they can never appreciate it. You stand on the 12th tee and you look back at the 11th green and the flag is blowing with you. And you look at the wind on the 12th tee and the wind is blowing into you. So that straight away gets people very confused when they're not accustomed to playing there. And that wind is swirling. The thing that makes that so tough, I mean, anywhere else, if you put that green anywhere else in the world, it would be a piece of cake. But the fact that those winds, and the first introduction I ever had to that hole was 1957. I get on the tee, and who's playing? Ben Hogan and Sam Snead, two of the greatest players that ever lived. And the one hits it in the water, and the other one hits it over the green. Because as the one hit over the green, the other one went to a shorter club, and the wind's swirling, and he goes in the water. So that's the thing. It's that wind. It's almost a nightmare how that wind will come up during your swing. And then sometimes you say, well, it's not going to come up. And it does come up. And sometimes it's blowing and you hit it, it stops or it turns around. So that's the thing. You're not really under control. That's why everybody gets so scared about it. Because they know, and I tell you, that's one thing I've never done, Chris. I don't ever remember, I don't ever remember knocking in the water in the tournament because I didn't worry about the flag. My pin was the back edge of the green. When that flag, if Jordan Spieth, when he had I think he had a 5-shot lead, with 7 holes to go, he should have taken his club and put it in the bunker at the back. He's so good, he gets down in 2. If he doesn't, he's still got a 4-shot lead with 7 holes to go. But it just didn't work out that way. And this is what happened. They say that hole's crippled more people than polio.
In 1974, you stood on the 13th tee with a 1-stroke lead over Dave Stockton, Tom Weiskopf, and Jack Nicklaus. You're 2 clear of Hale Irwin. I can't believe that there is a tougher trio of people chasing after you and the back 9 of a major than those guys. You go on to birdie 13 and then hit perhaps one of the greatest shots, in my opinion, in golf history from the fairway on 17 to about a foot. And I've said this to you before in our previous conversations. Like I say, it might have been one of the best shots I've ever seen. And you knew it because you hit the ball. It's in the air. You walk over to your bag that was laying down there on the fairway. You lay your club down. You start walking to the green. The ball hasn't even landed yet. And then it lands about a foot from the flag. That's about as good as it gets.
That's exactly right. And I mean, it's destiny. I mean, you can never say I'm that good that I could do that. And my caddy, Eddie McCoy, as I hit it, I said, Eddie, and I walked to the bag and I put the sort of semi threw it onto the bag, and I said, we're not going to need the putter. Can you imagine? I said, we're not going to need the putter, and it finishes 1 foot or 10 inches from the cup. At a time like that, I mean, wow. But, this is the thing about this golf course here. It's like, I've always said it's like a mousetrap with a big piece of cheese waiting for you. And the good times and the bad times, you're going to experience it. I mean, where great shots end up in sheer disaster, where a child can play it well and a grown-up man cannot. It's an incredible golf course. It's an incredible golf tournament. It's an incredible place to be. And you've had people like President Eisenhower, who is the greatest believer in freedom. And everybody in the world, everybody's son, everybody's child should go to Normandy to see the greatest country in the world, the United States of America. What those young men did under the leadership of President Eisenhower and Mr. Bradley and Montgomery of England, between the 3 of them, and how these young American boys and allies went into that battle knowing they would not come back alive to enable us to have freedom, which we are enjoying today. But young people in America today, I think they're absolutely unaware of that. And we should, in honor of those men, remind them, and they should try and get parents to take them there if they can ever afford it, or if not afford it, at least show movies to every single child that comes to school. Because freedom, and I had to live in South Africa with apartheid. And when I first came to America, you had your apartheid. And so these young children today, and the young people and the young men and women, they're enjoying this freedom which many people sacrificed, and they should be reminded.
Let's move forward and talk about your third Masters victory in 1978. You were supposed to be too old to win the Masters at 43 years of age. You started the final round 7 strokes behind Hubert Green. Your playing partner that day was a very young Seve Ballesteros. You shoot 2 under on the front side, but you're still 5 shots back of Hubert Green at that point. Then you shoot 30 on the back 9, which could have very easily been 27 or 28, because not only did you hole 7 putts from 10 to 30 feet, you also burned the edges a couple of more times. What do you recall about that back 9, and how special was it for you to have Seve essentially rooting for you every step of the way as you made that charge?
Can you imagine, you shoot 30 and you touch the edge of the cups 3 times more. So it could have very easily been 27. But thank goodness I didn't shoot 27 because you'd never be invited back. And now you've got Ballesteros when I hold that putt. And at that stage, nobody had ever held a putt from above the hole to win the tournament. Since then, it's been done. And Ballesteros, when I hold that putt for 30, he comes across the green, the young Ballesteros, and he says to me, Gary, compadre, you teach me to win Masters. And the next week, we go to the Tournament of Champions in California, and he's 7 ahead of me. So he comes to me and says, Gary, last week you win tournament 7 shots behind. This week you beat me. So anyway, I shoot 65 in a cold, rainy, windy day, and I beat him. And he comes up to me and says, Gary, last week you played very good. This week you're very lucky. And then we go to Houston, and Andy Bean, that big, strong guy who I got on so well with, he comes up to me. He says, you little sawed-off South African runt, you're not going to beat me today. I'm 6 shots ahead of you. I said, Andy, of course I'm not going to beat you. And I shoot 64 and beat him. And the next week, for 4 in a row, I lose by 1 shot.
Yeah, it's probably the greatest golf over a 4-week stretch that may have ever been played. What was it about that 4 weeks that really got you going?
Putter. And this is the thing. And honestly, I don't like to sit here and boast, but it's impossible for anybody to do better than that. And the thing is that, this is what's quite upsetting. And young people who are listening to this interview should take heed. Everybody talks about how far they hit the ball. Now, professional golfers probably use a driver 8 times around, but they have an average of 29 putts. So putting is the secret. The reason why isn't the best striker of a ball. Ben Hogan was the best striker of a ball. Tiger Woods and Bobby Locke from South Africa were the best putters. If you want to win a tournament, it's how well you putt, how well your mind works. And Chris, that's something that it's indefinable to explain about the mind. I exercised my mind all my life, and even today I exercise my mind. I'm almost 91, and my mind is as sharp as when I was 20, because I exercise, I eat properly, I sleep properly, I laugh a lot, and I work on my mind all the time. And that's absolutely imperative if you want to live a long time.
And we'll be right back. You guys know what a fan I am of On Point Golf. Folks, get the #1 ball marker in the game of golf. On Point is the only 3-dimensional ball marker with alignment technology and a removable coin. It is approved for use according to the rules of golf as defined by the USGA and the R&A. As we all know, putting is all about line and pace. Mark your ball with On Point, engage with your 3-dimensional ball marker, and have more confidence in your line, execute the putt, and lower your scores. Folks, With the likes of Jim Furyk, PGA professionals and amateurs alike out there using them now, it's the number one ball marker in golf that actually helps you lower your scores. Go online to onpointgolf.us, read about the science behind it, then put one in your bag and make more putts. I feel like it's the 15th club in my bag. It's helped my game. Why wouldn't you let OnPoint help yours as well? Again, onpointgolf.us. Check them out and get one in your bag today.
PGA Tour Superstore pros aren't born. They're made. Every January, hundreds of associates talk to the top manufacturers, learn about the latest clubs, test the newest equipment, log thousands of hours of training, and together, hit over 100,000 balls, all so they can get you the perfect fit.
Now let's get back to the show. Mr. Player, you mentioned Bobby Locke, and I've heard you say in the past that if Tiger had never tried to change his swing, he might have won 30 majors. I often wonder if the PGA Tour didn't run Bobby Locke off, how many tournaments and majors might he have won?
Well, that's a good point. They barred him because he won 7 out of 11 tournaments here, and he was beating Ben Hogan and Sam Snead and Jimmy DeMeritt and all the Lloyd Mangrum in those days, wonderful golfers. And Bobby Locke wins 7 out of 11 tournaments, and they bar him from playing the tour. Can you imagine in those days? They just barred you. And but he was, he's never rated in the top 20 players of all time. But I can tell you, he was in the top 20 players that ever lived. But for some unknown reason, people forget. I don't believe in legacies, and I think that's what happens. So many young people. The best golfer I ever saw was Ben Hogan. The best swinger I ever saw was Ben Hogan. The man who knew the most about the swing by a mile was Ben Hogan. He went to war in his prime for 5 years. Then he had a car accident for another 2 years, and he still won something like 65 PGA events. And he went to the British Open one time at Carnoustie, one of the toughest golf courses in the world, and he won. What would have happened if that man had the same opportunities that Jack Nicklaus and Arnold Palmer and Gary Player had? What would he have done?
I've also, speaking of Bobby Locke, I've seen you kind of demonstrate his putting stroke, and it is unique to say the least. How do you think he ever pulled off that putting stroke and made that many putts? It was just so different.
The thing is that what people don't understand about putting, particularly people that have never been champions and don't understand the game. You've got to remember, a lot of the players today have had their careers ruined by teachers that have never really been in the arena. All they've done is read about it and heard about it, but they didn't really know what they were teaching. And I can tell you, and I wouldn't mention names, but there are at least 8 guys that had their careers ruined by going to teachers, changing, and the biggest culprit is Tiger. Tiger won the U.S. Open by 15 shots. Inconceivable. What does he do? The next week, he's having a lesson, and he never wins another major for 11 years. If Tiger Woods had kept his swing and never changed, he would have won at least 24 majors. But the worst thing in golf, the worst thing in life is if. They should eradicate the word if from the English dictionary. If I'd lived in America, I would have won at least another 3 majors. Traveling to South Africa, 40 hours, 6 children, living in motels, being away from home. I wasn't able to play like I normally would have if I lived here. Arnold and Jack, they went home for the weekend. They went home on Sunday night, and I never. So all these ifs don't mean a thing. It's only what you actually do. And today when they judge the best players of all time, they never look at the record book and say, who's got the best record? And there's not a question about it that Jack Nicklaus has the best record in golf today. He won the most majors. He was second 19 times. But you cannot explain what it is. 19 times second. In the top 3 the most time. In the top 2 the most time. Most cuts. His record is absolutely impeccable. Now, had Tiger Woods not, if Tiger Woods had chosen the right decision he would have been the greatest athlete the planet has ever seen.
Speaking of what people actually do, and what sets you and Mr. Nicholas apart that I don't think either one of you get enough credit for, is your longevity in the game. Mr. Palmer was a great ambassador to the game. We all owe him so much. But his dominance was very short, only about 6 years from 1958 to 1964. You and Mr. Nicholas were winning majors for 20 and 25 years. Shouldn't that also be a measure of a player's greatness?
Well, absolutely. I mean, you look at a BMW motor car, how good the engine is. And it's good because it's the best car in my mind because it lasts a long time. And Arnold Palmer, my brother, and he was the most charismatic man. And he loved people and people loved him. But he won majors over a 6-year period. Jack, 25 years and me, 20 years. And to me, when you're judging players, you got to judge longevity. My first tournament and my last tournament, they were over 45 years. Surely that means something.
To that end, the other thing that I don't think enough people know about you and your career is you won the career Grand Slam at the age of 29 on the PGA Tour. Then you also won the career Grand Slam out on the Champions Tour. I don't think that gets enough recognition and enough talk about how great an accomplishment that was.
Well, I was at a dinner last night in San Antonio, Texas, for 1,400 people. And that was a question that came up. And they said, what was the two greatest things that I did? And I said that I was the only player to win the Grand Slam on both tours. And they said, well, how important was that? I said, well, Arnold Palmer, Jack Nicklaus, Lee Trevino, Tom Watson. I said, everybody tried, nobody did it. So you know how tough that was. And the other thing was receiving, for me, the Medal of Freedom, because to me, nobody in America loves this country as much as I do, because I've traveled more miles than any human being. I've seen what's occurring in the world, and I understand what freedom means in this great country.
Mr. Nicholas used to say about winning a major that they were actually the easiest tournaments to win because there were only a handful of guys out there who thought they were capable of winning them. Did you find that to be the case as well?
I think to a degree that's true. We were talking at lunchtime today with a lot of young people, and I said, to actually believe that you're the best. You hear people say that, but they don't really. And when they're under the gun, that's another story. How many people can lead a tournament? How many people can really, really play golf under the gun when they're leading? There's one golfer who won 2 majors. I won't mention his name. Every time he came to the last hole, every time he was leading, he folded. He just absolutely fat choked. And yet he had so much ability. So the mind and the putting, not long distance. Long distance is an asset, but it's not a necessity.
He also talked about how you could always tell who wasn't going to win in a given week. And those were the guys that were complaining about the golf course. It's too wet, it's too windy, it's too this, it's too that, because those guys were mentally defeated before the tournament ever started. Did you mentally mark off guys that are typically good players or might have been a contender because at the beginning of the week they were the course and the conditions got so in their heads that they really weren't going to be able to pull it together to win the golf tournament?
Absolutely. And I think of one particular guy now where they played the PGA that Bob Tway won. And this man had a lead, and on the last hole, Bob Tway holed a bunker shot, and they made a big fuss about it, how unlucky this player was that Bob Tway holed a bunker shot to beat him. But he came back in 40. Nobody ever said he came back in 40. You don't win a club championship at a golf club, your local club, if you come back in 40.
You've traveled more miles to more places than anyone in history. But is there a place that surprised you when you got there, maybe for the first time, that how passionate those folks are about the game of golf?
Yes, as I traveled, and as you correctly say, I traveled more miles than anybody that's ever lived. That 70 years of across the globe, in all corners of the globe. And today with golf, incentivization being so great. It's played everywhere, and the players are so good. They always have been good around the world. They've never been given the recognition that they deserve. And so when you win anywhere, if you win in Timbuktu, you got to play your heart out, I can tell you that. And what we're seeing now, for me, the big tragedy of golf that I see now is that the ball is going so much further than when we played 60 yards. I think being here at Augusta, the third hole, who long as anybody except the Shambro today. And Nicholas used to hit a drive and a wedge to the third hole. Now they drive over the green. Where's it going to stop? Because in 30 to 40 years, I don't know exactly, they're going to all be hitting the ball over 400 yards because the incentivization is so great. The prize money is so great. They're all going to the gym. We've never had big men play golf in the history of golf. You're going to find LeBron James and Michael Jordan, the likes of those two men coming out playing. And I don't know what's going to happen. They're going to drive. There's no such thing, Chris. There used to be a par 5, a par 4, and a par 3. There's not a par 5 in the world anymore. So golf has changed completely, and we've got to cut the ball back. So what is happening, Chris? I mean, I just flew back to South Africa to lengthen and improve the Gary Player Country Club, where we have that big tournament, the Nedbank Challenge in December. I mean, we're spending hundreds of millions of dollars. Think about what I'm saying. Hundreds of millions of dollars around the world on lengthening and changing the golf courses. All we got to do for professional golf, I'm talking about, is cut the ball back 60 yards, and we can take those hundreds of millions of dollars and put it into the benefit of golf, into areas where people don't have the opportunity of playing. They don't have enough public golf courses. They don't have enough opportunities to play. It's just a tragedy and such an utter waste. And the other waste is cutting down trees on golf courses. You should be planting trees, not cutting trees down. My brother was the leading conservationist in the world. He said trees stop soil erosion with the great root structure. He says you cut a tree down when it's dead, but you never cut a tree down. You prune it up and you take out the small, you get light and oxygen, but you never cut trees down. What they've done to some of the golf courses in the United States, some of these architects, is a tragedy. The best greenkeeper in the country is down in Dallas, Texas. And he said, and he told me, he says, I never cut a tree down. I prune it up and I give it oxygen and light, and the grass grows under the tree, and everybody should follow suit.
Mr. Player, when I look back at your early career and your golf swing now versus back then, you used to have a finish in a reverse C, and putting back then was very risky. Nowadays, your spine is perpendicular to the ground on your follow-through. Nobody breaks their wrists anymore in the putting stroke. Talk about the evolution of your own golf swing.
Well, first of all, the reverse C, because you were staying behind the ball, and you're absolutely right, Chris. And now you finish more of a perpendicular finish with your weight on the left side. And when we putted wristy for a reason. There were no mowers like today. We never putted on a green like they have today in our lives. We weren't allowed to knock down spike marks. They didn't put the pins in different places every day. You had a mower. I can remember at my club, the greenkeeper pushed the mower, and I had a rope tied to it around my waist, and I pulled it. You had a little silver roller. Now you got these rollers. I mean, there's nothing in golf that's the same now as when we played. We never played with yardage. We had a ball that went 60 yards less. We played with wooden heads. We played with a heavy shaft. We didn't have metal heads. I mean, there was nothing the same. And so you make the adjustments according to time. But we got to be careful, because I don't know what's going to happen. I think the ball is the ruination of golf, in my opinion, because we're spending unnecessary. You got to channel your energies in the right direction. We need places where people can't afford to play golf. We need more public golf courses. There's so many places in the world kids want to play, but they can't play. That's the sad thing. You can play football. You can play tennis, even bare dirt, but we need more facilities for people who can't afford it to keep the game going and fill the rooms of the club for members in the future.
Mr. Player, I'm originally from Pittsburgh, and you played in the U.S. Open at Oakmont a few times. You tied for sixth in 62. You had the 36-hole lead there in 73. Oakmont is known for being one of the toughest golf courses in the world. I kind of wanted to get your opinion and your memories of trying to tame Oakmont.
You know, I hate to be critical, but you're asking me a question, so I'll give you the answer. What happened to Oakmont is a tragedy. I spoke to many players who played in the U.S. Open. They said they wanted to cry when they saw and they went back there. Not a single tree. Now remember this, that in the midst, right through the middle of Oakmont, there's a highway with enormous pollution. And yet they cut down every tree for the simple reason, it used to be like this. Well, every single golf course used to be a place with no trees, etc. You don't go backwards in life, you go forwards. And so what they've done to Oakmont, every single player I see, they're just absolutely shocked. And you got a lot of city slickers, people that live in big cities that don't understand nature. They don't understand nature at all. The trees are there for insects, for birds, for root structure, for shade, and to stop the strong winds. There's so many reasons. And city slickers, they don't know these things. They just come down and cut the trees down. And then you've got a couple of architects. Wherever they go, the first thing they do is cut down the trees. Wherever you go, you should be planting trees. Trees are the most beautiful gift to nature. But to have a feeling, and many of the great presidents, I did a speech the other day for the house at the White House on all the presidents that I played with in my life over 70 years. And so many of those presidents, I spent 16 hours preparing our speech, but so many of those presidents, nature helped them to survive the pressure and to improve their leadership. Nature, they have a word, it's called a gift to nature, and we must not destroy it. We don't have the right, we don't have the knowledge to destroy nature.
Mr. Player, just a couple of more before I let you go. And as we look ahead to this week's Masters tournament, Rory completes the career Grand Slam last year. Scotty has won 2 of the last 4 Masters tournaments. I got to get your thoughts. Who do you like this week?
I would love to see DeChambeau win. To me, DeChambeau and Tommy Fleetwood, those 2 guys, they stand out as the 2 best people on the tour with the public. They talk to them. They communicate with them. I would give anything to see DeChambeau win the tournament. He's a fantastic guy. He just came to South Africa. He played in a live tournament there. They had 100,000 people there, and they adored him. And the day after the tournament, he went to a driving range, and he was telling people how to play golf, and he gave a young girl a set of clubs. This man, you remember when he played the most phenomenal shot to win the U.S. Open at Pinehurst. And after the tournament, he went out there with people and gave them all a chance to try the shot and hold the trophy. No, DeChambeau and Tommy are my 2 guys that are my favorites. I like a lot of other guys. I love a lot of other guys. But those 2, they put the most in the game to keep the public interested and loving the game of golf, which is so important.
You've written a wonderful book that I always keep nearby. It's titled Don't Choke. To me, that is a book for anybody that wants to play the game at a high level, particularly junior players as they are growing in their young careers and the things that they are progressing up through. I think it's a very important book for them to understand and to read. I wanted to get your thoughts for our young listeners that are out there. Talk about your book, Don't Choke, and what they'll learn in it.
Chris, knowledge, education in our lives is so important. The youth of a nation are the trustees of posterity. Youth have got to read. They don't read anymore. They've got a phone and they don't care about reading. And, if you take Lincoln had no formal education at all. but he became president by reading and a lawyer. And reading is so important. Winston Churchill had the greatest command of the English language. Martin Luther King was a great reader and had an incredible command of the English language. Young people should read if they like golf. And they want to be any good. Get yourself that book, Don't Choke, because that'll change your life as a golfer.
Mr. Player, I can't thank you enough for being generous. This is the 13th time, each of the last 13 years, that I've had the privilege of spending some time with you. You probably don't know this, but you were the very first guest on this show, along with the great Billy Casper, back in 2013. And that's what really got us on the map, was having the two of you on show number one. And here we are 13 years later, continuing to talk. And I can't thank you enough for everything that you've meant to this show, to me personally, to me as a mentor, and to somebody that has just been obviously a legend and a fantastic ambassador for our game around the world. I say all that to say you mean a great deal to me.
Well, first of all, let me return your compliment and say it's good to talk to you because you understand the game of golf and your questions are such logic and so by just saying, which I always do, God bless America.
Take care, Mr. Player. All the best to you and your family. I look forward to doing this again a year from now.
Bye-bye, my friend.
See you, Mr. Player. How great was that? The privilege of getting to spend another half hour plus with a man who is an icon in our game, and Gary Player, just absolutely touches my heart. A guy who has just been a wonderful friend of this show since the very beginning, someone who's meant a great deal to me, someone who has made this show into a lot of what it's become. I can't thank him enough for all of his wonderful insights and stories that he has shared with us over the years. Like I say, a guy who has become very special and very important to me. And I look forward to this every single year. The opportunity, not only is it Masters Weekend, you look forward to that because I'm a fanatic about the golf tournament. But I know coming up is going to be another opportunity to sit down with the great Gary Player. Can't thank him enough, like I say, for everything he's meant to me over the years. A huge dose of vitamin G for Mr. Player and everybody, his grandson James and his assistant Debbie Lonanecker, two people that have also become very important to me over the years that I've had an opportunity to get to know just a little bit. And I can't thank them enough for their support over the years. So I hope you really enjoyed that with Mr. Player, 90 years of age. And I know he's going to be just as great and just as sharp when we sit down and have the same type of conversation next year when he's 91. Coming up next is a guy who is an up-and-coming golf course designer, one of the brightest minds, guy that's doing things differently, thinking outside the box, and creating some of the absolute most stunning golf courses on the planet, and that is Agustin Piza. Before Augie joins me, let me remind you about the great things going on up at Macklemore. Because this year, get ready to experience a game like never before at the Keep, the brand new Bill Bergen and Reese Jones co-designed course at Macklemore. With its challenging layout and awe-inspiring views, every round here is an unforgettable adventure. Whether you're taking on the signature holes or just soaking in the scenery, the Keep is where your best golf meets nature's finest backdrop. So grab your clubs and join us up at Macklemore. The Keep is open, and it's waiting for you. And folks, if you haven't tried 2-Under yet, you really need to. Why? Well, from the first tee to the clubhouse, 2-Under's Joey Pouch is going to keep you comfortable and locked in all round or all day. Build your own bundle by going online to 2-Under, that's the number 2, UNDR.com, and save up to 20%. Okay, now making his next On the Tee debut with me, and I'm very honored to say this, is Agustin Piza. Agustin is one of the top golf course designers in the world. His design firm, Piza Golf, has been involved with over 80 design projects in Mexico and South America. Going back to his college days, he earned his Master of Science degree in golf course architecture from the University of Edinburgh in Scotland. And yes, it's just a short train ride from there to the Old Course. He is one of the foremost pioneers in modern golf course architecture. He's a visionary, the one behind the video courses that you watch on TGL. And I couldn't be more honored that I get to spend some time with him today here on Next on the Tee. Hey, Augie, how are you, my friend?
How you doing, Chris? It's great to be here. Thank you for that very, very kind introduction. Loved it.
So, Augie, I want to start by going back to potentially, we're going to talk about a little bit when you were in college, but as a kid, I know you're a big sports fan and you've got a passion for all kinds of sports. What sports did you grow up playing, and how did that passion for sports get in you?
Well, the irony is I played football all my life, American football for all the Latin American speakers and European speakers. So yes, American football was my passion, is my passion still. Love that sport. I think it's one of the best, if not the best sport ever. Love what it entails. Love the camaraderie. Love that teamwork and the discipline and everything that goes, and the chess game around the coordination, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, and head coach. So I love everything about football. That's what I grew up. I played golf a little bit, but it wasn't my thing as a kid growing up. And I started really, really picking up on golf when I graduated from university, from architectural school, which was a 5-year degree in architecture. And then I did my master's degree that you mentioned.
All right, so let's talk about that. As you mentioned, you get your degree in architecture. You do so at ITESM down in Monterrey, Mexico. Yes. And then you go from there to the birthplace of golf over to Scotland. And I have to imagine that everybody is trying to get into the University of Edinburgh. And I can't imagine that it's very easy for anyone to get accepted into the school. You had to stand out amongst, I'm sure, a lot of other people. Talk about what it was like for you when you found out you got in.
Well, that was a great experience. Yes, it is true. It is a highly ranked university in the world. And Edinburgh University is, when we applied, I believe after the fact that I knew that I got in, I just for golf course architect master's degree, there was about 130 applications from around the world, and there was 11 of us in the classroom.
Wow!
At when the buzzer rang. Yes, so, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, so you're obviously then inside the top 10 of those that got themselves in. So what did you do? How'd you differentiate yourself?
Well, it was very, very fortunate to work with the best, learn from the best, directly, indirectly. When I knew that I wanted to become a golf architect, just immediately after I graduated, I knew that I wanted to mix sports with architecture. So my first dream was to build stadiums. That was like during my regular architect degree dream, is how to get involved in sports. When I picked up on golf, it discovered me, golf architecture, and I pursued it immediately. From there, I was very lucky, and this is where it's all going to connect. I was very fortunate to land a job working for Paragon, a Jack Nicklaus construction company in Cabo, doing Palmilla and El Dorado at the same time. I was like back and forth between those jobs. I was working with his construction company, not with his design firm. But the guys, the directors there knew about my dream, and they always included me on Jack's walkthroughs. So I was there, when Jim Light was there, I was right there just listening, whatever, driving the cart, taking the cooler, the jug, and filling it up with ice and water and all that good stuff. That was my kind of like my job for me to be on the walkthroughs, make sure that everybody was feeling comfortable under that Cabo heat. So that's how they got me on the walkthroughs, and I was learning the ropes while I was also learning about construction. So that happened with both of those jobs. And then on my third job, I jumped to Querencia, the first Tom Fazio golf course south of the border in Cabo. So imagine that was my first 3 gigs were 2 Jack Nicklaus signatures, Palmilla and El Dorado, and then Querencia with Tom Fazio and working with Design Workshop and working with Dennis Wise. Tim Jackson, who's a dear friend of mine, we started together to a certain extent on the same generation. He was the junior designer for Tom Fazio back then. So imagine that camaraderie growing up with Tim Jackson from Jackson Con and stuff like that. So it's been a great connecting the dots years later. So after that, I worked on a Robert Von Hagge course in Monterrey, Mexico, and then I had the sufficient, let's say, juice or muscle to apply to a master's degree of this caliber. That was part of the European Institute of Golf Course Architects, and I got in. So that was also, the cover letter is very important. Your passion letter is very important, and of course your work. You're 6-7 years into what you're doing, and that's what got me in.
So as you're going to school there, I can't imagine it was long before you made some sort of trip, car, train, whatever it was, to get to the old course.
Oh, yes.
So I got to ask you, what was it like the first time you stepped onto those sacred grounds and then put a peg into the ground?
Well, just imagine. I lived it before, because studying architecture, you study, the great Gothic architecture, the great, or Notre Dame, the great churches, the great cathedrals, the great buildings, Pompidou in France, etc. So you're talking about, different movements, rhythms, like Le Corbusier as well. So I already had the opportunity when I did my first European tour when I was 28. I obviously I paid my own way. I'm out there in Europe touring and living my architecture school through the building of Pompidou, Notre Dame, Colonia, different buildings that are the Pavellon in Barcelona. So anyway, all of that sacred Sagrada Familia. So I live that, and that's why I can compare. I got to live it twice, because then I studied golf architecture, and I had the opportunity to study the greats, to study the Alistair Mackenzies, to study the Donald Rosses, to study the Abercrombies, to study all of these master architects, and of course old Tom Morris and young Tom Morris and all that great rich history. The 500 plus years of golf in Scotland, and had the opportunity to walk the sacred ground of the old course, the new course, which I found it very funny that the new course was like 130 years old, and it's called the new course. It was it's kind of like all that irony you get to live, and it was a beautiful second wave of architecture that I had very fortunate to live that second phase of my life, and my two passions, my architecture and sports architecture, in studying the grounds and sacred grounds of the old course and St. Andrews.
You mentioned Alistair Mackenzie, and I saw a video that you did breaking down 5 iconic golf holes, and you said when you were playing Cypress Point and you got to 15, you almost cried. Yes. Tell me about that experience.
Well, I said almost because I was kind of like a little bit embarrassed, but I cried. No, this is again another feeling of greatness, another feeling that you're there. Somebody had the audacity, the talent, the knowledge of finding that hole and creating and representing something so beautiful, so challenging. It mixes with your emotions, and that's what I like to portray on my architecture. Is how do I design for emotions? That is the number one thing in our book, is how do we mix and how do we design for emotions? And that's the feeling that we look at. Sometimes if we get to that, that's beautiful. If we don't, we tried our best. But that's the feeling that I want to replicate every time that I have my pencil and paper in front of me.
There was something that I learned from you by watching that video, and probably most people don't know, but of Alistair Mackenzie, you talked about how he got involved with the English military and the bunkers that their soldiers would be in back in World War I.
Yes.
They were all sort of long and rectangular, so easily spottable if you're an enemy plane coming in to see that there are gunners probably down there in that bunker. But he actually got involved in redesigning the bunkers, making them creative so that they weren't recognizable from the air, and that became a part of his design theory as well.
Yes. Can you imagine that? I mean, having that influence in the world? Yes. He came back and he was like, guys, our bunkers are, you can spot them from the sky because they're just, 3, 4, 5 lines across the horizon, across the piece of land, and they're spottable. So let's create them with a little bit of movement, a little bit of, let's crunch them here, crunch them there, and create these camouflage. And that's part of his camouflage theory that that other people know also as the camouflage between, you're playing a hole forwards and then you turn back on the green and you don't see any bunkers. That is part of how that matured in his camouflage theory and design philosophy.
That's amazing.
Yes, it's impressive. Alistair McKenzie was ahead of his time, and he's definitely, if you haven't noticed yet, he's definitely my favorite architect in the history till now of golf architecture.
One of the many things that I love that I've heard you say is there are no rules in golf architecture. There might be some structure, how many par 4s, 5s, 3s there might be on a 9, but there are so many courses that average players like me can play that are very similar. I can't tell me how many times that I've played holes with my buddies and whatnot, and we get to another team. We're like, didn't we just play this hole like 4 holes ago?
Yes.
But you do things very differently. You think out of the box. Talk about how you do things differently than a lot of cookie cutter golf courses.
Well, Chris, it's just. I think it just comes with my critical thinking. I like to think that I'm a critical thinker. So the why have we always done this is always in my mind. It's kind of like, okay, great. This is great. This is how it's always been done. But that's a very deadly phrase. It keeps you in your comfort zone. So, it's just something that I believe very deeply in our design philosophy and in our in our life in general. I think everybody that's listening to you right now, to us right now, is here in this world to do something special. Now, the situation is, how do you discover what is that special thing that you are here to do? That is the situation. So how that brings us to, questioning ourselves in everything we do and trying to arrive to something different. And some will work, some will not, but we keep on trying. So again, to the phrase that you said, yes, golf architecture, especially, it has no rules. It only has guidelines. So there you go. Here are your guidelines. Now, what are you going to do with them? You can, you can create beautiful golf courses that are out there now, especially in these days where architecture is more based on an approved timeline architecture. Yes, where you go back to the golden age of architecture, and now we're living the golden age part 2 of golf architecture, which is beautiful. Don't get me wrong, it's beautiful. But is that the best artistic expression that golf has? I don't know. I question myself. So I'm still searching for the best artistic expression of golf architecture.
You've mentioned the work you've done alongside at Tom Fazio. You mentioned Mr. Nicholas's construction company. You've done some things with Mr. Player, and my annual pre-Masters conversation with Mr. Player will be coming out as a part of this episode. But I was kind of curious, your time spent around them and walking those courses and seeing what they do, probably listening into some conversations. What did you learn from the 3 of them, and how have those guys influenced the things that you're doing with your own designs now?
Oh, I've learned a lot. Everything that we are is who we have met and what we have learned during our lifetime. And that placed into our own self and how we interpret that. It's another saying that I like. It's how the idea and the knowledge and the experience and the chats that we've had, how does that come into our brain and goes through our veins, goes through our hands, grabs the pencil and interprets that on paper. That is those connections can break easily. And then from there to real life. So all of that is a beautiful chain that I personally never take for granted. It's beautiful. So yes, of course, I've learned a lot from them. Just with Robert von Hege, I think he was one of the best strategic architects out there. Regardless of critics, yes, of course, there's always going to be critics. With Mr. Player, that was an amazing walkthroughs with him. He's so connecting. He's so down to earth. He's funny. He has all sorts of stories, and he's just out there having and enjoying life. What you see of Mr. Player out there in his videos, that's who he is. That's how he is with people, and he shows you that he cares. So having that, the nature side of things, the sustainability side of things, it's it's contagious. So that from Gary Player and Robert von Hege, and then you go to Jack Nicklaus signature courses and Tom Fazio, and the quality is just top and superb. So just imagine that, the aesthetics of Tom Fazio, and then the quality of Tom Fazio and the quality of Jack Nicklaus signatures with the expertise of resort style design versus private versus public or semi-public or semi-private. All of that also has to do with beautiful architecture. We cannot, or we shouldn't, or I'll speak for myself. The most important ingredient in our design is the why. What is the purpose of what you want to build? If you look at our website, Chris, you don't see one project that looks the same as the other, because it's very important to come up with the why. Why are we doing this? So we don't have a style per se. Our style is dictated by nature. Our signature, we believe, should be nature. And on top of that, what is the brief? What is the playbook? Who are we catering this for? Why are we doing this for? And that will become the best architecture for that site in particular, and your nature, sustainability, and the business plan. Because sustainability, let's not forget that it's on the social aspect, the ecology aspect, and the economic aspect.
And we'll be right back. Golf season is back. We've got the Masters coming up, and the U.S. Open is out there on the horizon. And Sunday Swagger just made sure you're going to be ready. Their new spring collection just dropped. They've got 60 bold, performance-driven styles for men, women, and youth. And if all of that isn't enough, well, they just linked up with Pennzoil and Team Penske for a race-inspired collection that brings serious trackside energy to the fairways. With styles for men, women, and youth, you're guaranteed to turn heads and spark conversation when you wear Sunday Swagger. Visit SundaySwagger.com, join the Sunday Club for exclusive drops and member benefits, and folks, Sunday Swagger is going to give you what? Polos with personality. Again, check them out online, SundaySwagger.com. And folks, Squares Golf, best golf shoes on the planet by far. It's not a gimmick, it's not marketing, it's science. Don't take my word for it. Let's hear from six-time major champion Sir Nick Faldo.
So Nick here. What if there was a golf shoe embraced by hundreds of thousands of golfers, celebrated for its stability, comfort, and distance? What if this shoe earned the title of most technologically advanced golf shoe by Sports Illustrated? And what if the company behind that shoe spent the last year perfecting a brand new category of golf footwear? Well, the what if is here. Introducing the all-new Pro S2 LT by Squares, a new class all of its own, the perfect blend of lightweight comfort and stable performance. You'll notice the difference. Change your shoes, change your game. Squares.
Now back to the show. Augie, I have a wonderful friend, Mitch Lawrence, who has come on this show many times. Mitch has been a huge contributor to this show over the years. He sings the praises of Tobacco Road and the designs of Mike Strantz. And I see that you're a fan of Strantz as well. You say that even though it's in the middle of those other historic courses, right? We know where it is. They're down around Pinehurst, that it has a soul. But you've also said that if you had a magic wand, you'd reverse the nines. Talk about what struck you about that course and why you'd reverse those nines. Why would you do that?
Well, you're going to put me in the spot now, Chris. I love that. This is just personal preference. I love. Now you can do it the way that is intended right now, which is come up with a bang on hole number one, and it's like, holy moly, this is just unbelievable. All right, this is what we're signed up for. Let's go. And you get pumped up from hole number one. Personally, when you play the back nine and you have holes 10, 11, and 12, they gradually take you to hole number 13 that has that green, if I'm not mistaken, has that green on top, which is very, very impressive. So in my design philosophy, I like to talk about my routings as a treasure map. So we like to take the player exploring and take him out on an exploration, and that's where we create that treasure map. And then for a third dimension, we call it the carousel of emotions. So we play with their emotions, see what we gradually take them like a good book or a good play, and create the plot, the rising action, the climax, surprising ending, or whatever structure we decide to use or we see fit to use. And I believe if you start on 10 being one, it gradually takes you to that crescendo. And then you see it reveal itself on hole number 13 now, or at that point, hole number 4. And then you continue. And then hole number 10 is just a masterpiece waiting for you on the other side. That was just my opinion on, with all due respect to a beautiful, non-normal masterpiece that has, and I love what you said, it has soul, it has a heartbeat. And that is what you want to achieve on any masterpiece that somebody creates, whether it be a painting, whether it be a sculpture, whether it be golf architecture. You want it to have a heartbeat and soul. And that is beautiful.
Speaking of beautiful, your first real go round at your own design, Tampico Country Club in Mexico, was the first course that believed in you. And from the views that I've seen of it online, you hit a home run right out of the box. What was it like for you when they came to you and said, Augie, you're our guy?
Wow, you're going deep. Usually somebody with my, with where we come from, golf architecture is not normal, especially growing up in the 90s professionally. And still in the first decade of the 2000s, it was mostly celebrity architects, celebrity designers, winning majors and becoming designers, etc., which was the norm in the growing up, even little, 80s, 90s. That was the predominant way of designing. And so when somebody that it doesn't come from this background has a dream of becoming the best golf architect that one can be, it is all you hear is the naysayers and you're crazy and you should stick to construction, man. You're Mexican. Let's go. So it's kind of like all of that stuff you start hearing, and but I still pursued it. When Tampico came around, it was actually a somebody from another part of the world designing that course that failed. It didn't work out with the country club. So I was like the batter up, kind of like saying, well, we have this guy in Mexico that has done this, studied that, worked here and worked there. why don't we give them a shot? We don't have they didn't have now a good budget because of the failed pre-project. And so they gave me a site, which was beautiful, with no budget. So I had to do magic. And that is what we have been doing, is creating magic in different parts of the world that has believed in us. And little by little, we started growing. But that was the situation for Tampico. We did something, and thank you for the remarks. We did the best we could do with a small budget, and fortunately, it worked out.
It certainly did work out. You pulled off a miracle there. That place just looks absolutely stunning.
Thank
Kudos
you.
to you and
Thank
your
you.
team.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you.
Augie, people may not realize it, but when we tune in to watch the TGL, the video courses they play, that's you. How did that opportunity come about?
That was beautiful. That was a beautiful opportunity. Well, I guess it all started with us opening up our San Diego office 5 years ago. So once we started to get a little bit more recognition, Tampico Country Club was 2008. So in 2014, we started getting a little bit more recognition. Our first runner-up award for Remodel of the Year in Huatulco, Oaxaca. That was another beautiful project that we were fortunate to be a part of. And we got a little bit of recognition. 2018, 2019, 2020, we started to get a little bit more recognition, started to get print in Sports Illustrated, Architects to Watch, et cetera, different magazines that were out there. And social media was also starting, getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So we got a little bit of recognition that we opened our office in San Diego. And we've always been, as you've heard, we've been always intrigued with different things. It's how do we do things differently? So being involved in technology was not a surprise for us. It was like, hey, how do we do this? How do we do that? How do we mix this with that technique and show this to our client? So by when we got the call and the invitation in 2023 from Tomorrow Sports, we were very fortunate that we got, some recommendations from Golf Plus, from Ryan Engel, because we did the pit together in their platform. So all of a sudden we started, TMRW were looking for something different, because they already had Nick's design on board, and they already had Bo Welling, who's awesome, on board. And so they already had those two big name designers, and they were looking for something a little bit outside the box. And fortunately, they did their homework, and they landed, and we got the call, we got the invitation. So that's how it went. And it's been a beautiful relationship since 2023 with Tomorrow Sports, seeing TGL grow, seeing, as they inspired me, sometimes, you get to inspire others. So now seeing different holes from now Gil Hands and from Bo Welling, and it's been a great atmosphere. Just imagine being in that foursome of designers, Chris, with in TGL season 2 with holes from Nicholas Design, holes from Bo Welling, holes from Gil Hands, and holes from us. It's a beautiful foursome.
Have the players given you any feedback on the holes that were yours?
Yes, I've gotten some good feedback, fortunately, and just saying, everything culminated beautifully in season 2 with Tiger Woods playing his the ode to him and his signature shot, the Stinger, and I just felt privileged. The whole team felt privileged to see him tee it up on Stinger and play the best Stinger shot all season. He got to that second speed slot, and it was just a masterpiece. He played it exactly how it was designed. It was just beautiful.
Augie, you've done several other courses throughout Mexico and some in South America as well. Which are the other ones that you want people to know about?
Right now, we're very, very happy redesigning Jupiter Country Club for Invited Group. So we're very happy redesigning that. We start later in a couple of months, and very excited to be in that area of Palm Beach, Jupiter, which is a privileged golf atmosphere, golf mecca in the world. And we've been very lucky and fortunate to be working with Invited Group, who I've had, more. I'm a member at a couple of their city club in University Club in San Diego, the Heights in San Diego. So I've known the group. I know how they cater to as a member. I've known them a lot, and now having the privilege to work with them and for them, remodeling Jupiter Country Club, we're very excited. So hopefully you'll see something very, very cool come up in the Jupiter area in a couple of years' time, by 2027. By 27, late 27.
Are we going to get to see more of your designs here in the U.S. sometime soon as well?
That is the plan, Chris. That is the plan. Thank you. Yes, and with platforms like yours, that will only help. And yes, that is the plan. We are setting up a few things that we will talk about. Hopefully, if you invite me back in by Q3, we will be announcing a couple of other golf courses that will lift some eyebrows, I would like to think, in the golf world.
I look forward to that. I hope you'll come back and share those stories with us. I'm already curious. So,
thank you, sir. Will do.
Augie, before I let you go, how can our listeners stay up to date with all the great things that you're out there doing, whether it's on your website or it's on social media?
Well, the website, Piza Golf, Piza golf.com, and all of our social media is Piza Golf as well. So at Piza Golf on Twitter, on Instagram is where I'm active on Instagram. So if anybody has a question or if anybody wants to interact, that's where I personally answer. Twitter I do as well, and of course LinkedIn and stuff like that. So we like to be very active on social media, not as content creators, just posting our passion and the love for the game of golf and its architecture.
Augie, I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your busy schedule to spend some time with me today. It's a privilege getting to know you just a little bit. And like I say, I hope this is the first of many visits that you have. Like I said, I can't wait to hear about what you've got coming up. So hopefully we get the opportunity way before Q3 to catch up with you and hear about the current projects and then hear what's coming up, like I said, later on this year. You're fantastic, my friend.
Thank you. Likewise. I really appreciate your space. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Take care, Augie. All the best to you and your family. We'll catch up soon.
And you. Thank you. Cheers.
Cheers. Folks, that is Agustin Piza. And again, he goes by Augie, but what just an unbelievably talented individual. And so much of what he talked about, I took away. And like I said, I'm already looking forward to the next time he's on the show. But talk about a guy that's doing things. First thing that struck me, he's doing things differently. It's not a cookie cutter golf course. He thinks outside the box. I love that piece where he talked a little while ago about taking you on a treasure hunt, kind of a treasure map of things, right? A carousel of emotions through the course of the round, having a plot, a surprise ending potentially there once you reach the 18th green. And to think that he's going to come out with more things that maybe we can go see. Like I said, a lot of what he's doing right now is in Mexico and South America. He's now got his foray at Jupiter Country Club, and I certainly know enough people in the South Florida section. So hopefully I get a little feedback on what that's like. But later on, to think that he may be doing some things, like you said, raise an eyebrow for what's going on here in the U.S., I look forward to hearing those stories. You get to see some of his holes all the time when you're tuning in to TGL. Make sure you make note of which holes are done by the Piza Golf Group. And like the other thing that he talked about early on in the conversation, know your why, right? The playbook that he has and that he's looking forward and he does. And who are you doing things for? That's another thing that struck me. When he's doing a golf course, the idea that he is trying to figure out, who am I doing this golf course for? And then the other thing he said is he lets nature kind of be the template, right? He doesn't have an idea in mind. It's not just going to be just like this. Follows what nature gives him, but always keeping in mind who he's doing the course for. all of those things wrapped up. And it's no surprise to me that he is one of the hot golf course designers. Why wouldn't you want that guy creating a course for you? If you're someone who can build a course or is on a committee putting together a course, or you're in a community that needs someone to come build a course, isn't that what you're looking for? A guy that's going to do the best he can for nature, a guy who's going to think outside the box, and then he's going to let all of that kind of flow together, and then he's going to take you sort of on this trip through the course, right? Treasure map through the course, give you a carousel of emotions while you're going through it, and then coming to a crescendo at the end. That's perfect. That's exactly what you want. He is an absolute treat. I can't wait to catch up with him again. Hopefully, like I say, maybe we get this privilege a little bit later on this summer. We certainly hope to get it by the third quarter when he's going to do some more. I'll keep you up to date with when I'm going to get to have Augie back as part of the show. Well, that's it, folks. It is time for me to put a bow on this amazing episode of Next on the Tee. Huge thanks again to Gary Player and Agustin Piza for joining me this week. Scheduled to join me next time are two guys who have also been fantastic guests ever since early on in season number 1 of the show. Wonderful friends, guys that mean a great deal to me as well. Starting with one who has annually been one of Golf Magazine's top 100 instructors ever since 2011. So that tells you how long this guy's been great. He was also a top 40 under 40 instructor, and he has been the director of instruction at some of the most premier golf courses in our country. Who's that? Eric Johnson. EJ is just wonderful. I love E. He'll be back with us, as will a guy who has been known as a grinder out on tour, a player that nobody has ever outworked, and is a legend in the Western Pennsylvania PGA section, and that is Bob Friend Jr. You guys know how great Bob has been over the years. Again, no one ever outworked him on tour. He was going to outwork you no matter what. Like he says in the segment, you'll hear, if you got there at 6 a.m., he was getting there at 5. Whatever he had to do to be a success, Bob was out there grinding to get it done. You'll enjoy both of those guys. Again, longtime friends, longtime guests. I want to thank our friends again over at Trib Live for being such wonderful partners of the show and for hosting it on their site. For the latest news from Western Pennsylvania and beyond, including your favorite sports, go to triblive.com. You can find the show by then clicking on the sports section tab. Most recent episode right there front and center on the homepage of the sports section for you. Or you can type in podcast.triblive.com, and many of the most recent episodes from this season are waiting for you there as well. But as you know, you can find us pretty much anywhere you get your golf podcast content. We're out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Good Pods, and golfnewsnet.com as well. But folks, as always, the biggest thanks go out to each and every one of you for being the best supporters in the history of podcasts, barring none. I am so grateful for each and every one of you. Until next time, hit 'em straight, my friends.
Thanks for joining Chris again this week on Next on the Tee. We hope you enjoyed the conversations as much as we did. Please share the show with your golf buddies and be sure to follow it on Trib Live or your favorite podcast app so you never miss an episode. Thanks for pressing play and being part of the journey. We'll see you next week, right here, where the best minds in golf share their stories.